Good evening. I am Mary Ray Bragg, a member of the Dubuque League of Women Voters and past state president of the League of Women Voters of Iowa. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active citizen participation in government. Membership is open to any citizen 18 years of age or older. We congratulate the two City Council Ward 1 candidates for their invaluable gift to Dubuque in being candidates for public office, and we thank them for their participation this evening. The two candidates running for the City Council position from Ward 1 are Susan Farber and John Pregler. They are running to fill the position vacated by Brett Shaw when he moved from Dubuque. Normally, this position is a 4-year term, but Shaw's term was going to be up in November of this year. So whoever wins the March 2nd election will face another election in November. Only residents of Ward 1, which includes the southern part of and much of the western portion of the city, will be voting in that March 2nd election. So let's get started. And starting alphabetically, we'll begin with Susan Farber. And we would ask you to please tell us why you are a candidate for the Dubuque City Council. Susan, I think you are muted. Can you?
Thank you.
There we go.
All right. Again, thank you, Mary Ray. And thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight. I also extend my appreciation to those joining us. Running as a first-time candidate for public office in the midst of a pandemic presents a set of challenges, as you can appreciate. However, I have been and continue to reach out to constituents, to listen to ideas via virtual social media and in conversation. And it's refreshing to see how the citizens do care about the goals and the missions during this very unusual time in our lifetime. And I'm humbled to have so much support for my common sense approach towards solving our city's biggest challenges. I'm a native Dubuquer, educated within the Dubuque public school system, and I was born and raised in a family owning and operating a small business for over 100 years, which has really been the foundation and the legacy for my ongoing entrepreneurial spirit. For many years now, I have been an active volunteer serving on local boards. And because of this involvement, I am current on issues that impact community health, equity unity objectives, arts and culture, historic preservation, workforce retention, and the creation of livable quality neighborhoods. And most important, as a small business owner in the restaurant industry, I understand well how the pandemic has impacted our business, our employees, our customers, and our neighborhoods. So what are my key challenges, my key priorities, Affordable housing, helping the elderly, the veterans, the senior citizens on fixed income, and those in poverty. For example, those living in the Table Mound mobile home park face challenges daily without legal protections. And they have many concerns against their predator corporate owners. I'm aware of this issue and how it negatively impacts Dubuque's families. Along with this, focusing on the rehabilitation and restoration of our historic and downtown districts will also help create low-income housing and thus assist in the post-pandemic economic recovery. And following that, focusing on small business support, working with the local, city, state, and federal partners will be generating hopefully grants, loans, and other programs to help these businesses retool. And most importantly, I will focus on workforce retention, training, and recruitment of young professionals into the Dubuque area. Thank you.
Susan. All right, John, please let us know what it is that has you motivated to run for City Council.
Sure. Hello, and thank you to our moderator and the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. I'm a candidate for the Dubuque City Council because I'm a 6th generation Dubuquer who loves and knows Dubuque, its people, our issues, and I want to use my experience and knowledge of Dubuque to help our citizens and small businesses who are struggling with the rising cost of living in Dubuque in this COVID economy. Our seniors and retirees, those on fixed and low income, and those who are more recently laid off or have lost their jobs, I see and I hear you. I had to take a pay cut in 2020 because of COVID. And I remember the shock and anxiety and the uneasiness that goes with the uncertainty of losing your job. I lost my job back in 2013 when a new company management came in and let a dozen people go at the company I was working in Dubuque. I'm running to use my professional experience working with governments over the last 25 years and my 10 years of service on the city's Long Range Planning Advisory Commission to help prioritize city spending, to help our neighbors who have to choose between heat, food, and medication, and are afraid they will not be able to take another year like 2020. So I look forward to our conversation tonight and addressing the questions of my fellow neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will move on to our second question, and John, we'll begin with you. And our question, that one of 25 that has been submitted by our members and by folks in the community who are interested in this discussion. So we will ask you, how did you prepare for a city council position?
I've been kind of preparing all my life. I was born into the mayor's house back in 1968, so I've seen government in action most of my life. I've also spent the last 25 years working with local, state, and federal government, including the city of Dubuque. I've done needs assessments a decade ago of all the city departments. I've been engaged on the city's Long Range Planning Advisory Commission for 10 years now. I chaired the comprehensive plan, Imagine Dubuque 2035, and the update of the comprehensive plan there 3 years ago, in which we reached out to over 12,000 citizens through different types of public engagement, speaking to them. It's just been a culmination of those efforts, especially over the last 10 years in my continual going to and speaking at city council meetings, that have really got me prepared to serve the city of Dubuque, and really has gotten me interested in wanting to be at the council table to speak up for those that are not being spoken about, like our retirees and those raising children under 18, which represent over 13,000 of our 23,000 households in Dubuque. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right. Now, Susan, your answer to the question about how have you prepared for your city council position?
Thank you. So in my entire career, my entire career, I have held management and leadership positions, whether it was for corporate America or here in Dubuque on the boards that I serve. And so, as I had previously mentioned, I have been very active serving local boards and thus being extremely involved in the current issues that impact the city today. In addition, I have been running a small business for the past 6 years, and there is a lot of experience that I can share, a lot of opportunity to work with the small businesses as they recoup from the pandemic. And so it's a combination of my corporate experience, my love and adoration for Dubuque, coming back to continually commit myself to serve on those local boards, to really engage and become very much aware of the current issues surrounding the city and its citizens, and then operating a small business and trying to work with the community at large, our neighborhood, mentoring our young college students and our young managers, most whom have been with us for the past 6 years as we have been operational. So I feel very qualified. I think I have a strong set of leadership and communication skills, cultural awareness as well, based upon my experiences outside of the city of Dubuque. And therefore I have a very broad shoulders and a very broad background that I do bring in support of the citizens of Dubuque.
Thank you. Now, this next question is going to be followed up with another question very much like it. So I'll tell you what both questions are, and then I will ask you the first question, and you can be pondering what to do with the second question.
You bet.
And you both mentioned small business, which is obviously on a lot of people's minds. So our first question is asks you to please address any ideas that you have to help businesses, both large and small, to recover from the pandemic. And my follow-up question will be more general, and that is just how do you address the needs of small businesses when hopefully we soon get back to regular business, and how do we help them to grow in our community? So we'll start with that first question about helping businesses of all sizes to recover from the pandemic and how you think the City Council can do something to assist with that. And we will start with you, Susan.
Thank you. So the wonderful uniqueness, I think, about Dubuque in the economic, basically the economic engine of the city of Dubuque is the small business community. And in a partnership with the local community, whether it's in addition to the city and the business community, large and small, and in addition to that, working with state and federal and local granting organizations, I think there would be some efforts to meet together and try to create some programs that will help the businesses as they retool. And I think it's very important following that, not only to help the businesses retool, but that includes workforce retention. It includes training and retraining of the workforce, depending upon how individuals are moving or reorganizing themselves to different business entities. And then basically how we go forward in attracting more talents to the city to meet our growing workforce needs. And great for the city that we have opportunity with a company like Simon's coming in, and with the bank out of Iowa City that is actually opening up a new facility here in Dubuque at the Weber Anderson building. That is just great. That gives us opportunity to engage more and to train more. We can also set up programs, as I think we're doing today, working with some of the minority population and small minority businesses to help them get the tools that they need for training, for understanding the business acumen and how to operate a business. And then also to help them maybe have internships with students either in the colleges or maybe in the universities, so they can have appreciation of how to run a business. So these programs, Susan, I think, are nice to kickstart and to help with that recovery.
Thank you. So now, John, it's your turn to talk about how you think the City Council could assist businesses, both large and small, in recovering from the pandemic.
Sure. Well, thank you for the question. And I agree with Susan in that we should continue doing all the programs she just mentioned, which the city's already doing. So we can continue that. But above and beyond that, what we can do is we can work with agencies like Greater Dubuque Development Corporation and develop more small business focused programs to help our small businesses in Dubuque. We focus a lot of effort and attention to go out and try to land the big fish, as it were, the Simons or the Flex Deals and the IBMs of the world. Studies show that economic incentive, you can create a new small business job for about $5,000 compared to about $35,000 for a large corporation job through the same economic system, incentive system. So I think we need to do more through Greater Dubuque. I think we need to be cognizant of the rising cost of living for small businesses and our citizens in Dubuque and manage our expenses and be targeted in our investments to help keep their costs down in that regard too. And the third thing I would do is look to the Greater Dubuque Community Foundation, as well as some of our local banks like Heartland, who are asking the taxpayers to help them with parking ramps and other things to develop a special low interest fund specifically for Dubuque small businesses and minority businesses. There's a large growing minority community in Dubuque that have unique needs that are not being served. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have a lot of great ideas. They just don't have access to capital. So we just need to start some new programs. And as Susan said, continue working the existing programs that we have.
Thank you. So now we'll follow up with the second part of that question that I mentioned before, and that is just once we're back to whatever normal is going to be, how do you see the city taking any new or improved efforts to assist small business owners in just their regular getting established, running their businesses, taking care of their businesses? And we'll start with you, John.
It would be a continuation of the two programs I just mentioned, also using the bully pulpit of the city council table to drive a Buy Dubuque campaign, especially small business Dubuque. And I think it's working more with the small businesses to really understand the issues that they have working with the Dubuque processes within city government. Things like licensing, permitting, inspections, those types of things that oftentimes you hear quite a bit from small businesses. I make an appointment, I go talk to somebody, I'm talking to the wrong person. I get told I need to make an appointment, go talk to somebody else, I do that. And there really needs to be one-stop shopping for small business, whether you're an existing business or more importantly, if you want to open a new business, where I can go to one person or one department in the city and get all my questions answered and start getting guided and have appointments automatically set for all the other departments that have a role to play in helping me get up and running as a small business. And part of that is looking at our different fees, which there's a effort going on regarding the fee structures within the city related to equity. We need to expand that to equity for small businesses as well.
Thank you, John. And Susan, your answer to what can we be doing on a regular basis for small businesses?
Well, I also applaud the idea of having Friends of Small Dubuque Business campaign organized and sponsored by the City Council. It's very, very important to buy local. And I do believe that not only is the Greater Development Corporation of Dubuque assisting, but so is the Dubuque Initiatives. And by them offering a small business, such as mine, a $10,000 loan as an example, interest-free for a period of months, that is just a big help, a big assist, and is greatly appreciated because the burden of a small business is actually in what it pays, either rent, mortgages, or loans. In addition, it is important for the city to have a collaborative effort with the local banks and the local institutions to perhaps help defer some of those payments for those loans for a period of time, as they did last year for the small business. And again, I know that deferring those monthly payments for the mortgages and other loans is a huge, huge lift and greatly appreciated. So again, I think it's great to help in the infrastructure and in the financial aspect of each of the small businesses. But I also think the Reach Out campaign with a joint task force, if you will, from the City Council and small business in a variety of sectors, because some of the sectors in the small business in retail is a little bit different than the food industry. We have suffered quite a bit in the food industry by not having people able to dine in on a regular basis here past year. And there's many, many struggles going on. But a nice opportunity would be to have a committee, a program together that could even help these restaurants figure out new strategies and new products so that when people come by to either pick up or to deliver, there's other things that the restaurant could offer by even making some of their products and offering those online or in different retail outlets. So I'm a big supporter of small business, as you can appreciate, and I really look forward to and hope that the City Council can come up with some programs with some of these small business operators to help them improve not only their reputation and to help the city, again, get back to its uniqueness, because there are so many small businesses in Dubuque, but also to help them get their economic footing.
All right. Thank you, Susan.
You bet.
Now we're going to change to a subject that's much on our minds all the time. As this year has started, it's still on our minds. And that has to do, of course, with the pandemic. And one of folks submitting a question gets right down to it and says she wants to know, do you support the city's mask mandate and under what conditions? And Susan, it's your turn to start, so we'll turn it back to you.
All right, so just as background, I do believe that the City Council and the Board of Supervisors are in lockstep in maintaining the mask mandate. And that is also the recommendation of the County Health Incident Management Team, and they are guided by the CDC guidelines. And I believe that the Home Rule Amendment, which has been passed, I believe in 1968, allows the authority to remain locally. But that being said, I'm not a lawyer and I cannot adequately determine its legality. And I really don't know that many Dubuquers disagree or agree. And I do know that many, Dubuquers do disagree with this mandate. But that being said, I live with 2 first responders who strongly advocate following the science, not only for the protection of themselves in the hospitals and their peers, but for the protection of the protection of our most vulnerable citizens. Saving lives is very paramount, I believe. So as we increase our vaccination numbers and the County Health Incident Management Team sees major relief, the City Council would be in a better position to review this position. And I believe that is reasonable and should occur.
Thank you. John, what is your feelings on the mask mandate?
Sure. First, let me say that I wear a mask when I'm out in public. 1, because I'm concerned about my own personal health. And number 2, out of courtesy and respect for others and their health. With that, I do recognize why people do have some frustration with the mask mandate. That was issued back in August when the White House and the administration at that time had indicated that Dubuque County was in the code red zone, as it were. The issue that I have is that we set the mandate without any qualifiers as to when it should end. We've gone from being a red zone to not being a red zone. We've looked at CDC requirements, but we really don't say when or how or why the mask mandate will be done away with. I think we do need to put some type of qualifier out there as far as the number of infections in Dubuque County, the number of hospitalizations, the number of vaccinated folks, and set a date. And then we can always revisit that. So I understand why people are frustrated with the open-endedness of it. And as far as the home rule goes, home rule exists as long as a governor or a president does not make an executive pronouncement on the issue that you're addressing related to home rule. And that's why initially the Dubuque County attorney, Tom Miller, our state attorney general, and the governor have all said that our particular mandate is not legal in that regard. I still am in favor of having people wear masks out in public, but I do understand the argument for people who say that the mandate is illegal, but I do believe that masks do work, and until we get those vaccinations numbers up in the city, I think we need it in place, but I would like to see the council put some criteria as to when it will end.
Thank you. This is kind of Susan, yes, go ahead. You'll need to unmute yourself, Susan.
There we go. Just one quick comment about an endpoint to when the pandemic or when the mask mandate can be lifted. I think that going back to science and going back to where we are in the city of Dubuque with our vaccinations and what percent, I know that right now we have over 8,000 of our residents that have been vaccinated, and about half of that, about 4,800, have actually had the dual vaccinations, which is a great start. But I think we should leave it up to the experts and our health experts in the Health Incident Management Team to make that determination as to when they would recommend based on the science and how we are progressing as to when this mandate should end. And I do support the mandate, and I do support masks as well.
Thank you. The next question that we have here is, do you think there is a way that the city can ensure the COVID vaccine is easily accessible to all Dubuquers? Would you like to see them play more of a role, or how do you think that should play out? And we'll start that question with you, John.
To the degree that the city can, we should play a role in helping facilitate, and we have been as we work with the county and the county board of health. A lot of that responsibility is outside of the city's control. Obviously, Mary Rose Corrigan does have a voice as a representative of the city in those discussions at the county as well as the state level. So we do need to do what we can do to help facilitate and ensure Dubuquers can get vaccinated, especially those that want to, and more importantly, those that need to, those in high risk area. But a lot of that is also outside of our control. We cannot control when we receive the vaccines, and we do have to follow an equitable formula to make sure that those received by the county get distributed equitably. We definitely need to do what we can as a city to make it easily accessible and help those who want to get it when they can get it. I think the Biden administration and the CDC are doing quite a bit to help facilitate that and develop those local partnerships more. I believe we've definitely made great strides over the last month or so, especially with opening up the center out in Kennedy Mall, working with the County Board of Health. And looking to the CDC now that they're coming up with more guidelines and assistance to help local communities set up and get those vaccines to those that need it.
Thank you, John. And Susan?
Yeah, so I am very appreciative of all of the work that the Incident Health Management Team is doing in coordination with Mercy and with Finley. And sitting on the Finley board, I'm very much aware of the population health and all the efforts that are ongoing, whether it's through the VNA or whether it's through Crescent Electric and through some of the other providers in the city of Dubuque that are now funneling all of this, hopefully successfully at the Yonkers space in the mall. It is a yeoman's effort. These people are working tirelessly and very, very long hours to get this done. And it's a great accomplishment. And as John had indicated, this is under the purview of the county. It is not under the purview of the city council, but nonetheless, the work with Mary Rose Corrigan, as she is coordinating with the health incident management team, and all the efforts that she's doing to tie into the various organizations such as the VNA, and Crescent and the Crescent Center are very important. And I think it's just part of the weekly or bi-weekly meetings and the updates that the council receives so that we are not only aware of the issues, but we can make some recommendations to Mary Rose on behalf of that, if indeed there is some issues. And I think if we can just coordinate with our partnerships with state and federal to get more doses here, and with the governor to get more doses here as soon as possible for that 65 plus group, we are in good stead. And I know that the teachers and some of the first responders are pretty much on their way as well. So kudos to the group that's doing it. And yes, expand to the governor, work on talking to via the city council, all of those partners to get more doses here as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Okay.
But now we're going to step away and get on to another subject. And this one has to do with workforce. And the question is, do you have any ideas on helping Dubuque to hire and maintain a diverse workforce? And we're going to start that question with you, Susan.
Thank you. So as we were talking about the recovery after the pandemic here in Dubuque for the economy, the umbrella of what fits under that and what the needs are pretty widespread. And workforce retention, retooling, retraining, and then attracting young professionals into the city of Dubuque is paramount. And so as we had just previously mentioned, hopefully in partnership with not only the partners of Dubuque, as we had talked about, the large businesses and the small business, to create programs to help with that retooling, to get some grants to help with that as well. As we are moving forward, I think affordable housing is important to make sure that we can house those people. And then in addition to the affordable housing, finding and developing as a city council and reinforcing our lifestyle, which is also very important here for these young professionals coming into the city, and to retain that workforce and to train that workforce, and then to have them enjoy the city. There's many things that we can do to make it a livable and workable city.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And John, your question or your thoughts on hiring and maintaining a diverse workforce.
Sure. Obviously, diversity goes along with the diversity of jobs. So we need to understand what are the jobs that we have, what are the skills that are needed, and where do the gaps reside. Greater Dubuque Development Corporation and Dan McDonald there, who works with a lot of the local businesses and small businesses, has his pulse on the heartbeat of some of those issues. We just need to start looking at how can we do more to help with that. A couple of the issues that we run into today, because we have a lot of employers who actually have a lot of vacancies for job openings and are looking for skilled employees. One is education. The other issue is transportation in our city. We've been moving our individuals, especially our low-income individuals, out to the West End as we break up our concentration of poverty. And more, the ability of transportation and transit is becoming an issue. And it becomes an issue for businesses as well. Also investing in small business, like I said, and generating that small business job for $5,000 worth of economic incentive versus a big business job for $35,000 economic incentive. Small businesses are the heart blood of business in America, as well as in Dubuque. People tend to be local, they stay local, and they're committed to their communities, unlike a large corporation like IBM or even a hometown corporation like FlexSteel, who is willing to move their jobs outside of Dubuque regardless. So I think we need to look at that. The other thing is the rapidly rising cost of living that seniors and low income and those in poverty are experiencing the last few years in Dubuque, with the rise of rents, property taxes, and utilities. So we need to look at controlling our expenses and the cost of living in Dubuque by the decisions we make at the city council table, especially over the next 2 or 3 years. And we're moving into the budget cycle here right after the election. And so it's very important to understand the budgets and the needs so we can reprioritize these next couple years and help those that need the help the most.
Okay, John, thank you very much. The next question is much along the same lines of what you've been talking about here, but to take it out of the business and just life in general. We had a couple of different questions, but it's on basically the same topic. And that is, how would you suggest that the city council address racial inequities within our community? Or do you think there is not a problem with that? What is your thoughts on that? And we will start with John.
Well, first, we always must be striving to do anything and everything we can regarding equity, racial equity, as well as financial equity, as well as equity for those who are on fixed and low incomes. So equity is a broader issue. It's not just racial. We do have some race equity issues in Dubuque that we do need to address, but they're fairly I don't want to say minor, because no racial issue is minor, but it's not as big of an issue as the inequity in the cost of living between the 43% of Dubuquers who are either on fixed incomes and over the age of 65, are disabled under the age of 65, or live in poverty, which is 24,000 of our 58,000 people in our city of Dubuque live under those conditions. So we need to think about the cost of living, the rents, and how they're impacted by property taxes. Whether you're a renter or a homeowner, you're impacted by all these capital projects. So we really need to look at the cost of living as it relates to our utilities and those it impacts the most. Susan mentioned the group out at Table Mound. I've been speaking to several folks there. You have individuals, elderly couples that are living on $900 a month Social Security that have seen their rents go from $250 to over $500 a month, leaving them less than $400 a month for their medication, for food, for their other utilities, and other costs of living. So we really need to look at our cost of living and the impact that government spending, especially on projects like Schmidt City Island, which is a high priority for City Council between 2020 and 2022. Well, part of the proposal there is to outline the Wisconsin Bridge and Lights at $3 million expense to the city taxpayer, when we have people that can't even pay their rent. I've talked to people who are buying their medications and their prescriptions and are having to take it every other day to make it last twice as long because they can't afford their rent and they can't afford their heating bills and they can't afford to eat. So we have, like I said, 42% of our population, or 24,000 people, are over 65, or they're disabled, or they're living in poverty. So we need to manage our cost of living through the expenses and the burdens the city council puts on our taxpayers. That gets passed on to everybody else.
You heard the bell, John. So we will move on now to Susan. And what is your take on racial inequities in the city of Dubuque?
Right, and I do think they're all pervasive, and the city council has stepped up to the task and is beginning to look at social and economic equity through its equity plan. And there's a couple elements there that I think are important. And the first one is the fines and the fees. So, and it doesn't make sense for some of the low income residents who are receiving some fees, whether it is through the justice system or even through the utilities, that may cost more to implement than actually the monies received are. And we need a program to research how these fines might be, whether it's in the justice system or in the utilities, might be disproportionately being charged to low income residents and residents of color. Looking to improve all of these, I think the city council has come up with an opportunity to create and maybe even to hire a consultant, because I think we need more detailed analysis of this program. And the Office of Shared Prosperity is one where they're supporting minority-owned businesses with these financial advisory programs. And as we talked before, getting students in to introduce them to some internship programs is necessary as well. It is a long-term effort, I think, to improving the equity throughout our community, but it needs to be teed up. We need to basically become more aware of all of these fines, I think, in the justice system that are being perhaps disproportionately given to the low income and to the minority residents. So yes, there is programs that we need to move forward with, and for social and economic equity. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next question has to do with cooperative efforts that we've seen. And this question is, the city cooperative efforts with Crescent Health Center have made a wonderful opportunity for our community. Do you think the city should become involved in a like way with, say, the Presentation Lantern Center and the Teresa House and the Marie House child care facilities? And we will start with you, Susan.
Well, that's a very good question. And I think when you take a look at what those not-for-profits are doing to support, as we go back to the social and economic equity here in the city, and some of those that are having different issues with their lifestyle, and single mothers and all kinds of others that are using the facilities like Crescent Electric My hat's off to those organizations. And I think to better understand that, it would be behoove, I think, the city council to put some planning efforts in place to meet with and to talk with these organizations to see more what their needs might be and to determine if more fundraising might be needed for them. But that being said, the Dubuque Foundation does an enormous amount of that fundraising and donations to that organization. 100 Women organization that I belong to, we on a quarterly basis donate funds to these kinds of organizations as well. And I know that there's a lot of external work that is being done in support of them financially. But I do support, again, I think partnering and talking about programs that could endeavor to assist and to make these lifestyles a little more comfortable and to talk to them about their needs, I think is a great idea. And again, it will improve equity throughout the community. And it will just take us to that next step in the long term, which we greatly need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, what are your feelings on the city becoming involved in these partnerships?
I think it's essential. We absolutely have to have these partnerships to address these problems because the city cannot do it on its own. So we definitely need to look at the different partners that the city already has and is in very proactive communication with. We know they all could use additional funding and fundraising, and we do a great job helping them as much as we can apply for and get grants. But we definitely do need to look and do more, especially for those in poverty, because 16% of our population, or near 10,000 people, are in poverty in Dubuque, and 34% of those are female-only households with children. That's over 3,000 families. So we definitely need to do more with public-private partnerships. And I think we should do that with not just for poverty, but for a lot of the things that we're trying to do in Dubuque to help subsidize the cost. Things like Five Flags, things like transit for our workers and our employers who need workers. So I think we can come together through collective impact models and public partner private partnerships to address these problems like we have with Crescent so successfully. And by the way, they need more money too. So fundraising is always an issue and always something that the city can help promote from the bully pulpit.
Okay, thank you. We're just, I can't believe time's going away as fast as it is, but we have one question that's very much in your ballpark out there in the first ward. So I want to make sure that we get that one included. And yeah, I lost it. Oh yes, how could I forget the fire station? We've had a lot of growth going into the west and to the south of Dubuque, and there's been some concern expressed about emergency services and availability and how rapid they can respond and all of that. What are you hearing and what are you thinking about the possibilities of either expanding or revising or whatever we need to do to make sure that the emergency services are available in Ward 1? And we'll start with you, John.
Sure. Well, this is a topic that's near and dear to me. I've been fighting for it for over 4 years. In 1968, a West End firehouse was recommended by a study the city had contracted. We have not done anything about that yet. If you live out on Creekwood Drive or Stone Valley Drive out on the south or west ends of town, you have a 15 to 20-minute response time for emergency medical services. That is twice the national average recommended by the Fire Protection Association, when the rest of the wards in Dubuque have an average time that's within the accepted average of 8 minutes or less. I'm very proud to have the Dubuque Professional Firefighters Local 25 Union supporting me in my candidacy and my drive to get additional EMS services built within the first ward so we can reduce those average response times in the ward, so we have equitable response times, because right now that's a question of equity as well for all four first ward citizens. The city did do a test back in October to place an ambulance, a third ambulance up on JFK, because the city only runs 2 regular full-time ambulances. But having it in an existing location isn't going to give us or show us the impact that we need to see. We need fire stations where they currently do not exist and where those response times are way above the national and city average. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And Susan, your response.
Thank you. And in agreement, I do believe that there is a strong need for public safety. And I believe that the expert on this would be Chief Rick Steinis. And he has actually led the way on determining when and where it will be appropriate to place that station and even to hire more first responders. And I do believe that the effort to hire more first responders is en route. Plans for the new station, I do believe, will take shape over the next couple of years and will be top of mind with the budget reviews ongoing during the month of March. And in the general fund, for example, public safety is the #1 priority, and that is about 42% of that fund. So the support is there. The public safety, again, is our top priority. And the city council, I think, is aware of that. With the opening of the Southwest Arterial in particular, and all the development that will follow suit, it's very important to get access out there. The calls will undoubtedly increase for EMS and fire, and the location of the new station on the West End will ensure response time is cut down, and I agree with John on that. So the long range planning, I think, is something that Chief Rick Steinis will be heading up for the city council, and he should be reporting in the month of March. And I do believe it is in the long range plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
I would just point out that the city council has been talking about this for well over a decade. They've budgeted time and time again. In the city manager's June 2020 budget update, he had cautioned the council that the 2025 date for a new fire house within the first ward is more than likely going to be deferred. I will not allow that to happen. The recommendation in 1969 was to have one in the first ward by 1980, and here we are in 2021, still without it addressed.
Okay. Well, we are running short on time here, and we really do need to wind up. So I think what I'm going to do is just ask that question that I wanted you at the beginning that I would like to do. And if you would consider and share with us one thing that hasn't been discussed tonight that you would really like to be able to talk about for a couple of minutes. And we will begin with you, John.
Sure. The one thing we haven't talked about is our city debt. The city of Dubuque has, as of June 2020, the last official budget update to the city council, $260 million in debt, or over $250 million. We are scheduled to pay that down to about $233 million by 2025, but there's also about $50 million worth of capital improvement packages over the next 3 to 5 years that will be going into the budget too, and adding to our debt as we also pay it down. But we'll pay it down about a net $29 million over the next 5 years. But the city council, and actually 3 city councils, have been pushing for a go big or go home vote for 5 flags, which would add a potential $80 to $100 million to that debt in 2025, putting the city debt potentially over $300 million for a community of less than 60,000 people. We have several cities in Iowa that are much bigger than Dubuque that have a lot less debt. That debt is what's driving the cost of living and making it difficult for the senior citizens that are only living on $900 a month to pay their rent and to also pay their medication and their heating and feed themselves. So we really need to look at and tighten our belts fiscally over the next 2 years, focus on those in the greatest need in the city of Dubuque before we start spending money in other areas that do not directly help those in the greatest of need in the city of Dubuque. And I'm not afraid to be that voice and to stand up and speak up during these budget sessions coming up. This is what I do professionally. I work with cities through the budget process. I understand what they go through, and I promise that I will speak up and be a voice for the disenfranchised in Dubuque.
Thank you, John. And Susan, the topic that you would like to discuss for us?
Yeah, I'm going to go back and chat a little bit more about that Five Flags project. Because as a result of the pandemic, just a little history here, as everyone knows, the Five Flags referendum is now set to be reviewed by the City Council beginning January 2022. And once the project's options are reviewed, the City Council will recommend the referendum be placed on the next ballot for the city voters to make the decision about the next steps that may or may not occur in 2022. And my thoughts are that the Five Flags facility is very much in need of repair. For example, the HVAC system was built to accommodate an ice rink and not an entertainment venue. And as a result, the arena is rather chilly. And due to the steel structure, the acoustics are not necessarily optimal for concerts. But there are other needs for upgrades, restoration and maintenance, as well as there is an ongoing discussion about rehabbing the arena to accommodate larger audiences, perhaps up to 6,500. Five Flags as an entertainment venue situated in one of our most unique historic districts is a tourist draw and adds to the quality of life here. As we are focusing on workforce retention and attraction of young professionals into our community, the Five Flags Center, I think, can be seen as a benefit, enhancing our nightlife, culture activities, etc. There are different funding options and restoration build-out options that I think the City Council can discuss. And no doubt there is room for compromise on both sides of the argument, and I would look forward to guiding that solution. And I agree this may include private sector funding, as well as issuing bonds to support this endeavor. On that note, I suggest we do pursue a public-private partnership for studies for funding. That could include a friend of the Five Flags Committee, as an example. Another thought, perhaps hotel and ticket fees could be levied to help with the funding. Even if this amount is only $1, that could really help with the funding over a period of several years. And I realize that this is a big ticket item for the city and its residents. And post this pandemic, we have several challenges to address, and the need to be concerned about dollars and cents is really top of mind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, now it is time for our closing remarks. So we will begin, Susan, with you. Your closing remarks, please.
Yes, you bet. So I believe it is important that my fellow First Ward constituents have an accessible and accountable representative, one who listens, who learns from the questions and ideas, and one who represents these voices at the council table. As someone who has lived her professional life focused on customer relations, I am adept at being that responsive representative. As the First Ward Council member, my priorities will focus on the public safety, population health, and ways that help our citizens recover from the devastating impact of this pandemic. And I would help create measures to improve the lives of our most vulnerable populations. Asking questions and implementing steps to help bring more affordable housing and livable neighborhoods, improving overall equity. I look forward to working with our partners to continue efforts to restore and rehab our historic downtown districts, whose properties and small businesses are economic drivers and the cornerstone of our uniqueness as a city. I look forward to working with our many partners to help retain, retool, and recruit people to fill in the city's workforce gaps. And in parallel, I look forward to working with our partners to help steer the arts and culture, along with the leisure and recreational venues to further the vibrancy of our city. Working with our city staff, I will help ensure that our taxpayer dollars are spent wisely, and I will not rush to judgment about projects. I will strive to conduct high-level due diligence before important decisions are made. As the first ward council member, I will raise the bar. I will strive to make a positive difference and bring fresh perspectives and current business thinking to the council table. Most importantly, as a fellow Dubuquer, and from my heart, I will work hard to continue my long-term personal commitment to give back to my hometown and focus on the future prosperity of this great city. So in closing, I thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. I enjoyed discussing the topics covered tonight. And to those of you watching, I am asking for your vote on March 2nd.
Thank you, Susan.
Pleasure.
And John, your closing remarks, please.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Farber, for our discussion tonight. And thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the citizens of Dubuque for this opportunity to speak with you before the election. I ask for your vote March 2nd, and I promise to stand up and speak up at the council table to protect our senior citizens, our retirees, our fixed and low income neighbors, and our local small businesses struggling during COVID. I'm honored to have the Telegraph Herald's endorsement, the endorsement of former Ward 1 Councilman Brett Shaw, and the support of a broad section of our community. I'm also honored to have the support of local skilled tradesmen, including the local IBEW and Teamsters, as well as the Dubuque Professional Firefighters Local 25. I will work tirelessly to understand and equitably address the issues that come before the City Council, and I'll fight for fiscal restraint on projects that do not help our senior citizens and disadvantaged or do not directly improve our core city services. I ask that my Ward 1 neighbors vote on or before March 2nd for John Pregler, so together we can face the many challenges and make the hard decisions that will allow our seniors and retirees, those on fixed incomes or in poverty, along with our small business owners, to survive the next 2 years without having to choose between which bills to pay or whether or not they're going to lose everything. These are worries many Dubuquers are facing. A vote for John Pregler is a vote to protect our seniors and those on fixed income. It is a vote to help our small businesses, and it is a vote to bring Dubuque's rising cost of living under control. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Dubuque League of Women Voters very much appreciates your participation in this election. We know that it's demanding, it takes a lot of time, but it is so essential to our democracy. So thank you to you, John, and to you, Susan, for taking this role.
You're very welcome.
This forum may be seen again on City Channel Dubuque, City Channel Dubuque on cable channel 8 or digitally 117.2. It's being streamed live on the city Facebook page and website. Thank you to City Cable Channel for providing the service. And we'd like to thank the voters for watching and sending in all of those good questions. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to so many of them. If you are a resident of Ward 1, be sure you're registered and then remember to vote on March 2nd. Thank you and good night.